Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys!
This might just be the idea of all time. Let's just get this clear. Yes, this is a Warhammer 40k and Lord of the Rings crossover. Specifically, the trip from Rivendell to Mount Doom, as well as the decades-long hold of the Black Gate by Talion in the Mordor games. So let's establish what exactly we're talking about today. This video is not simply what would happen if Sauron fought the Chaos Gods, or can a Space Marine chapter defeat Calagon the Black? No, that'd be too simple and kind of boring if I'm being honest. Instead, what we're doing is swapping out the beloved and well-written narrative endeavors of the Fellowship and Talion with Space Marines. So welcome back, all you beautiful ladies and animals, into this trek of Middle-earth as I break down the effect of the Astartes in Lord of the Rings. Now, if you're unfamiliar and were just curious about who the Space Marines are, these are elite warriors genetically enhanced to be far stronger, faster, and more resilient than regular humans. They wear power armor and wield advanced weaponry, and they are deeply loyal to the Emperor of Mankind, their godlike leader. And whenever I say Astartes, this is just the official name for Space Marines. These soldiers are then organized into different chapters, each with distinct histories and specialties. For today, you only need to know the masters of the tax code, the Ultramarines. Now, for this video, we're going to be looking at two special Marines in particular and putting them in specific scenarios. Dimitri and Titus, former captain of the Ultramarines as he takes the place of the Fellowship and attempts to carry the One Ring into Mordor, specifically pulling from the movies more so than the novel version of the story. And Caedo, the Ultramarines' Doom Guy, as he attempts to hold the Black Gate against forces of untold evil for years on end. Can they do it, or will the Marines just fall to darkness? We shall see. But first, some ground rules. We're putting them into Middle-earth, so that means no production, no armaments. If they get injured, there's not exactly any apothecaries nearby to help. And no factories, meaning the most effective bits of their kit, the bolters and rifles of the Astartes arsenal, is going to be redundant very quickly. Instead, they'll be walking into Middle-earth with their power armor and a power sword, as chain swords would run out of fuel in a world without promethium. But otherwise, they're still 8-foot tall, 1,000-pound studied angels of death that have lived hundreds of years and taken on incredible demons of the warp, their armor and power sword keeping the two whole as they trek through all of Middle-earth. Now, how would Titus react to the ring? He withstands chaos to incredible amounts, being able to stand in the warp for quite some time without a hint of turning away from his duties. But the One Ring corrupts absolutely. It corrupts you while making you think it was your idea all along. It's harmless in the hands of a hobbit because they don't really have any extreme ambitions to play off of. But for men who seek power, or a powerful Maiar like Gandalf who would want to destroy Sauron, it feeds off of those wants. If he is told of the ring's trickery, Titus's regular conditioning and constitution could help him stave off the corruption, but only for so long. The ring's corruption is not something you can resist. It corrupts absolutely. The only way to entirely avoid it would be to not use it, because once that line is crossed, there's no going back. So long as he doesn't encounter anything that forces his hand, Titus could theoretically pull off the trip corruption-free if his ambitions and wants are clear. He wants to serve the Emperor, to fulfill his duty more than anything, and if his duty is to destroy the ring, it'll be hard for the Golden Band to twist that into a corrosive path. Nevertheless, the story begins as Titus embarks on the journey from Rivendell, shouldering the burden of the One Ring alone. Along the path, he comes to enter the mines of Moria and finds himself facing an ancient horror, the Balrog of Morgoth. While Gandalf originally took on this task, Titus meets his fiery foe with sheer ferocity, his power sword clashing against the Balrog's whip of flame. The first contest of strength, and without his advanced weaponry at his side, Even with the power sword in hand, Titus would struggle immensely with taking down the Balrog, if he were able to pull it off at all. In Middle-earth, Balrogs are thousands of years old. They are adept spellcasters and powerful demons of Morgoth. The one in Moria was defeated by Gandalf, but he died in the process. As tough as Titus is, this would be like taking on a greater demon of Khorne first thing. Orcs, ogres, and goblins are nothing for the Ultramarine, but the Balrog, even if he could kill it, it would claim the Marine in the process. But maybe he doesn't have to. If you remember, the Fellowship scurried through Moria because they were avoiding intense storms and winter conditions on the mountain pass of Mount Carados, which would have left them dying of hypothermia or being caught by orcs and wolves. For Titus, this is no issue. Marines are fairly adept over rugged terrain. Some snowy mountaintops, wolves, or orc warbands would be nothing for a son of Gilliman. Passing through the greatest foe of the first film, Titus could simply avoid this battle altogether, marching right through the mountain pass rather than cutting through the mines to begin with. As for the other orcs and Uruk-hai he may encounter, well, their arrows couldn't hope to pierce the ceramite armor of the Astartes, allowing him to clean through the soldiers with much ease, rather than hitting knives away with his sword or getting pelted with arrows. The attack sent his way would simply bounce off the lieutenant's armor, and from here, he moves on. Now, going onward to Rohan, Titus would immediately be a presence of awe and shock. The Space Marines cared not for trickery and platitudes. Even without his bolter, Titus, familiar with the cultists of chaos and corruptive forces, would make quick work of Grima, cutting the worm out from Theoden's ear right away. Whether or not he could do the spell thing, I don't know. Theoden might be screwed either way. But standing as tall as Karl Urban on horseback, none of their riders could threaten the Space Marine, even if he did bring bloody combat into the King's Hall, making his removal of this parasite all but confirmed. And now, when Saruman comes for Helm's Deep to cripple the Rohirrim and open up an easy path to Minas Tirith? Tirith? What the fuck? And open up an easy path to Minas Tirith? Minas Tirith. And now when Saruman comes for Helm's Deep to cripple the Rohirrim and open up an easy path to Minas Tirith, there is no way for them to withstand the counter-assault led by Titus. Not only is he a fantastic strategist, coming up with plans that he practically feeds to his superior in Captain Acheron, but he is still a Space Marine. Now, with just a sword, is it possible for hundreds of Uruk-hai to overwhelm and hold Titus down, wearing down his armor and breaking him apart? Yes, with enough overwhelming force, you can stop a Space Marine with practically regular dudes. But with the armies of men and elves covering the wall and Titus being able to exact small and precise strikes against the enemy, the Uruk-hai would be halted from their advance. He would simply be throwing their siege ladders off the side, hopping down and using the explosives of the Uruk-hai against them, laying waste to the besieging enemy. For the first time in a long time, the marked armies of darkness that serve Saruman may come to know fear. As they regrouped and marched on Isengard, Titus could pull off this task alone, striking deep within enemy territory as the unnaturally fast and strong Space Marine could lay incredible waste to the wooden structures of the forges here, pulling the plug on the dam and flooding the Black Tower single-handedly. And once he was alone, Saruman would be a challenging but eventually easy battle for Titus. While trapped in the physical body, Saruman's magic was not unlimited, but mostly hindered by a level of willpower he could exert on others. With a Space Marine as devoted as Titus, it is incredibly hard to surpass his own willpower. While the Marine may be thrown around and struggle at first, he and his power sword would have the White Wizard laid out in short extents. Equal to some of the greater sorcerers of the Thousand Sons that Titus has recently taken on in combat. But now, Titus moves to Mount Doom, where he may destroy the ring. Now, Heading into Mordor, Titus is going to take the front door. Because he was too good when facing orcs and Uruk-hai from before, he would have never gotten split off the main path and run into Gollum in order to find the back road into Mordor. Not that a space marine would even listen to a creature like Gollum to begin with. But crossing the Black Gate and facing down the entire might of Sauron's army, with the Dark Lord's eye focused on him, being that the movie incantation of Sauron is without his physical form, hoping for his armies to collect the ring for him, Titus would have an immense task before him. Between the Witch King and his Nazgul, drakes of enormous hellfire, and legions of orcs and Uruk-hai, ogres, and more that are nearly unending past the gates, Titus, even as powerful as he is, would struggle. It depends on how much is thrown at him at once. The Emperor's angels are fantastic warriors, but as we see in the opening of Space Marine 2, an overwhelming force of increasingly dangerous enemies is enough to put a lone marine down, given enough pressure. Between the drakes, ogres, Nazgul, and unending waves of orcs as Titus is beset on all sides, but by bearing the One Ring, could he stand against these forces of evil and by opposing, end them? Forcing his way through to the steps of Mount Doom and standing over the edge of the volcanic lake below. But if fighting to this point, staring at the band encrusted on his gloved hand, which had empowered the Emperor's angel to fight against incredible forces of evil, would he willingly cast it into the fire? This is dependent on the ambitions of Titus himself. As a servant of the God Emperor, and possibly, if whispered to by the Golden Throne, Demetrian could muster up the ability to harm and destroy the ring. But even Tolkien considered the ring too powerful for even the will of Sauron himself. But that's still based upon the ambitions and wants of the bearer. Sauron would have no reason to destroy the ring. Would the Ultramarine be sound of mind enough to throw away such a powerful tool? Or as all others who have come into contact with it, would he also be corrupted by the ring's incredible pull? I'm not sure on this myself. Let me know what you think would happen down below. Does Titus succeed at throwing away the ring, or does he unwittingly betray humanity under the unstoppable coercion of the ring's embrace? The events of Shadow of War see Talion, a former soldier of man, donning a copycat version of Sauron's ring, dominating and using the orcs of Mordor to fight one another for years on end to keep the evil armies of darkness trapped within Mordor, halting their advance from marching on the rest of Middle-earth. Now, same as before, if we drop Malam Caedo down in Mordor and task him with doing the same, well, he wouldn't even need the ring. There's a reason why I saved Caedo for the 60-year war rather than sending him to Mount Doom. And if you're unaware, that's because Caedo is him. If you thought Talion was a lame Starkiller-esque overpowered nonsense character, just wait until Malam pulls up to the function. Like, there's a reason his name is unironically I Kill Evil. This guy is super steroids on legs. If fighting a Balrog is tantamount to fighting a greater demon, and taking on Saruman is like fighting a great chaos sorcerer, Caedo does both at the same time. Against a horde of orcs, ogres, the occasional drake or Nazgul, even nerfed down to using just a power sword, I'm convinced you could give this guy just a hardcover copy of the Codex Astartes and watch him keep Mordor under wraps for 6 decades without ever getting a wink of sleep. Basically, Caedo is so hyper-lethal that he would effectively just be using these 60-some-odd years of slaughter as a warm-up, finally going to the deepest valleys of Mordor later on, clearing Sauron's forces before Titus even shows up with the ring. Yeah, so, Caedo would bag up most of Middle-earth with little issue. Let's just hope Shasla doesn't show up too. And there we have it. 2 of the greatest warriors among the Ultramarines showing the Fellowship how it's done. Compared to Warhammer 40k, most of Middle-earth would be a cakewalk, even without the firearms. The biggest threat to these Marines would be Balrogs or even the One Ring itself. But then again, I kill evil, so a Malum Caedo Tom Bombadil team-up would end all darkness in Middle-earth overnight. With that, we're at the end. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe, share, and like the video if you want to support what I do here on YouTube. Become a member or a patron and get access to every single video up to a week early, with some extra bonuses like being able to read my scripts and other behind-the-scenes content. If you'd like to talk with other fans of Warhammer or show off some of your own awesome designs, check out my Discord server linked below. We do weekly streams and get together for games as well, but there's a whole channel in there dedicated to Warhammer, the miniatures, and even Space Marine 2. So come say hi. And like always, if you want to support me in helping a good cause, pick up something from my merch collections linked below. Whether it's a shirt, jacket, apron, or a mug, each and every dime from sales are being donated directly to my local food bank. So get yourself an awesome, super soft piece of clothing while doing good at the same time. As always, stay cool, have fun, and be awesome. Buster out.